questions that have enabled us to develop relationships with docs. But one of the things I want to share with you right now is to take another look at the way we ask questions. And I'm going to share with you an idea that's actually enabled about 2 million people achieve greater success in building relationships. It's enhanced my questioning abilities. It's enhanced many others. And maybe, just maybe, ladies and gentlemen, may enhance yours. And I'll take you back a couple years ago. Actually, a number of years ago, I was in the process of completing my graduate studies in training and development, which is actually adult education. And one night, I'm kind of hurrying out of class, and my professor got a hold of me and said, "Charlie, would you be interested in helping me go through 20 years' worth of research on the way people communicate?" Now, folks, you've got to imagine my excitement at this opportunity. I'm thinking to myself, darn, I almost got out of here. So I had to kind of think quick, because I thought I had two choices. Option number one is I say yes. If I say yes, I clearly suck up. If I suck up, I get a great grade. Of course, then there's option number two. I decline the offer, run the risk of offending the professor, taking a hit on the GPA. So bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, I sucked up. I said, sure. Love to go through 20 years' worth of research in the way people communicate. So about a week passes. Nothing happens. I kind of think I'm in the clear. 2 days later, this professor shows up with a box. It's actually a tub with handles. It's about 2 feet thick worth of data in it. And I started going through it. And there was a lot of articles, a lot of research on how many are familiar with the terms open and closed-ended probing questions. How many have heard those questions? A number of us, right? And I will share with you, at the time I was going through this, I had a good 12 years of sales experience. So as I was reading this material, I'm saying to myself, gosh, I've taken the classes, listened to the tapes, read the books. And I'm just about ready to write a little executive summary until I came across this one research paper. And folks, I'm going to ask you to turn your attention over to page 7, because this research paper had what I thought was a very interesting title. The title was Dialogue versus Recall-Oriented Recitation. Now, I'll admit to you, I didn't have a clue as to what this meant, but it sounded pretty interesting. So I started to read into the research. And the very first paragraph is a little troubling. The very first paragraph actually suggested that open-ended questions are ineffective. Now, I got to think, folks, if you read that like I did, you'd push back on it and say, wait a minute, that's the foundation of selling. I mean, I got to think every sales training program you've been through, they've taught you the importance of open and closed-ended questions, correct? And I got to think when you're out in the field, when your DMs are with you, I mean, what do they beat in your head? You got to ask open-ended questions, right? Matter of fact, every once in a while, DM may say, could you do me a favor? Could you just ask a question? Right? Right? We've all had those moments. Right? So here's this piece of research that conflicts completely with everything we've been taught. So it's just about ready to, just kind of move on. But fortunately, I kept reading. But what I found out was pretty interesting. Because what the research indicated was, don't worry if your questions are open or closed. That's a given. They kind of made an analogy like that's selling or communicating 101. What the research wanted to suggest was, if you want to be an advanced communicator, don't worry if your questions are open-ended, but be concerned. Do they generate a recital or dialogue answer? So now I'm starting to think to myself, well, what's that? So I'm looking for definitions. And if I'd like you to turn your attention on page 7, about a quarter of the way down, you'll find a definition of recitation. Recitation, ladies and gentlemen, is a recurring sequence of stellar questions. That will be you folks. Plus, physician responses, where the physician recites what he or she already knows. Meredith Gall, who is an educator, suggests that recitation depends on recall of prior knowledge. So if you think about it, a recital question is any question you ask a doc, A, they already know the answer to, or B, they've been asked that question many times before. So now I'm saying to myself, all right, I got that. So what's dialogue? If you look about a third of the way down on page 7, you'll find it. Dialogue questions require a complex thinking process. They involve longer exchanges amongst individuals where you solicit opinions and thoughts, not just correct answers. 70% of the conversation comes from the doc. But the most revealing part of this definition, I'd like you to jot down. So folks, halfway down on this page, you'll see a bullet and 2 blank lines. What I'd like you to jot down is the following. These questions create comparisons that lead to change. I'd like you to jot that down. Creates comparisons that lead to change. You know, I read this, ladies and gentlemen. I will admit to you, the light bulb started to go on for me. And I got to think it's starting to go on for you as well. I mean, if you think about it, your role as a representative, it's pretty clear. If the doc isn't writing the product, the challenge is to get them to write. And if they are writing the product, the challenge is to get them to write more. So you're there to change the way people think. So the challenge I'm going to put forth to you is no longer are we going to be concerned whether our questions are open or closed-ended. But the new challenge, do the questions that we ask generate a recital or dialogue answer? Folks, I'm going to ask you to turn your attention back to page 6. And on the very right-hand column, you'll see it says R/D. Very quickly, what I'd like you to do is assess your questions